as always, that was good friend of the show and last week's guest host, Colin Gow, with his song podcast. If you didn't listen to last week's podcast, it was our 50th, and Colin and Kip Greenhill came in and guest hosted, and Colin, at the very end of the show, did a special acoustic version of a new potential podcast theme song. Encourage you to give it a listen, and give us your feedback at fanmail@uaoh.net or hatemail@uaoh.net. You can decide which one of those to use based on how you feel about the song, the new song. We all love the old song. It's a high bar, but we have a new song. And speaking of new or different, we have a different person in the, I'm actually going to call it a co-host chair.
I was going to say, you actually have a co-host right now.
I have an actual co-host with me, someone who has made appearances on the show and has helped book guests.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Better than Darren.
Yeah.
Really?
Jackie Thiel is back in the co-host chair. Welcome.
Real Deal Thiel's back. Thank you, Darren, for being gone.
And always we have Maggie in the producer's chair. In our guest chair, we have again, because Colin was here last week, you will now be our second repeat guest. We've talked repeatedly about having this gentleman back on a periodic basis, and it's pretty timely to have him back because we are headed into a new school year. Superintendent Dr. Bob Hunt, welcome back.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I didn't realize I was at that bar with only the second time back.
You are, and we are at episode 51, so yes, you are starting off a new era.
That's great.
That's the podcast. Great.
And, I just aspire to have more listeners than Ferris. That's kind of my goal for my superintendency in Upper Arlington.
From everything I hear, that's not possible.
I know. That's
Ferris is a pretty high bar. So, as you know, we start off every podcast with what we call Start Bench Cut. We have like 4 options today that we may come back to.
We had a lot of fun coming up with these.
I'm starting to sweat.
We may come back to a couple of these depending on how this whole podcast goes. But we're going to start with things that you've had to deal with in your first year as Upper Arlington Superintendent. So Start Bench Cut, parking / drop-off, lunch at the high school, and athletic field surfaces and uses. So which one of those would you be happy to deal with on a regular basis? Which one of those can you tolerate? And which one of those, oh, good Lord, please let it go away?
So my options again were parking, lunch, and field use?
Field surfaces and use, yes.
I'm glad you put a lot of preparation into this, Steve. I would cut parking.
I would too.
Yeah,
well,
we'd be happy to not talk about that anymore.
We could rely on each other for that one. Bench, field use, start. I'll talk about lunch all the time.
Oh, well, that opens the door then.
There we go. You want to talk about the quality of food? You want to come over and eat?
Specifically, I wanted to talk about something I think is very unique to the Upper Arlington School District, and that's...
When is Darren coming back?
You're going to enjoy this because she's actually using this to go after me.
So DoorDash, Uber Eats, how does that work at lunch?
That is a very unique...
is it allowed or do parents just do it?
It is allowed currently. I think the high school administration is having some conversations about that right now, actually. Breaking news.
Yeah.
So, when I walked through for the first time and I saw the bins and people walking in and out, I did not put it together. And I would say I'm not aware of another high school that has such a service for their students.
Yeah, I'm not.
But it could be a major economic decision for some of our residents that provide that.
Jackie is bringing this up because occasionally, like on game days, and when you've got an 18-year-old who's 6'3", 5 pounds, and he feels like he needs to get a whole bunch of stuff into his body. Occasionally I might have ordered DoorDash for Nate.
Yeah, the problem with this is, A, that's a little bougie, I think.
It's a lot bougie. Yeah.
But B, my kids found out about this, and so they're not allowed to get it at lunch at school. But anytime I have to work late now, they're like, tell Steve that we need DoorDash.
I'm not sure that's on us or between you two. Did I come here to counsel between you two?
And can you even get DoorDash out?
Whoa, hey.
Hey.
Ow.
I live in a beautiful city.
You do live in a beautiful part of the state. Yes. Jackie does not live in our fine city, but out, and her kids go to Buckeye Valley High School.
Gotcha.
It's a lot different.
So it's a little bit more rural. So
I can call their superintendent and see if we can get DoorDash.
Oh, no, please don't.
Yeah.
That's the last thing I need.
That'd be great.
I will do that. I got a to-do. There we go.
So those were a few of the kind of different kinds of things you've had to deal with in the first year. How was the first year?
First year was great.
You're, what, 13 months into the job, right?
Yeah, I actually moved into my house July 3rd, and the 4th of July last year was the first kind of family day here, and I think that kind of set the tone for the year. Like, it was intense. Yeah. It was great.
What a way to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did your adventure with the school district go? Like, I know that you had your...
Yeah.
What was your theme for it?
We called it UA Adventure.
UA Adventure.
They had a little, like, Indiana Jones theme going on for that.
Mm-hmm.
When we put it together, I was a little skeptical because I thought it would be a little too more PR-ish than quality. But honestly, it literally is one of the best things I've done as a superintendent. I wouldn't say just here. I'd say, in my time, really dedicating time to go into buildings and spend time with students and staff, and then, we had opportunities for parents at night. And really very quickly learned that each elementary has kind of uniqueness, and unique culture, and the things that they value, and then identify where their consistencies exist and where there may be inconsistencies where you need consistency, right? So it was a huge learning curve, and it was a lot of work, a lot of time.
Yeah,
but
I can only imagine.
It was great.
Yeah, what a great way to immerse yourself in the community quickly, right?
We're actually doing, kind of a round 2. Without the camera and lights, but to come back around in the fall, and I think it'll be part of what I do going forward. It made that much of a difference.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what surprised you the most when you did that tour?
Probably the uniqueness, the level of culture. I was in a school that had one elementary, so the culture was, that elementary school. And then I went to a huge district with, over 10,000 students and 10 or 12, and you saw personality differences. But here they just have a very different feel, and I wouldn't say one's better than the other. They just have a different feel, and some of the offerings are different based on what's provided and unique about those buildings. But that was really surprising to me. And then the consistency of warmth and culture and sense of community here. I've had the good fortune of working in districts that the community support their schools. Mm-hmm. But it's different here. It's a higher level of engagement. It's a higher level of buy-in and commitment, and you see that, and you guys deal with that. We have a community that supports and wants great things for the community, and you want to provide that. So
as a parent, I can speak to the difference in culture because our older son went to Wycliffe, was there for kindergarten through 5th. Our younger son started at Wycliffe, and it just wasn't the right match for him, and he ended up at Tremont, which meant I had a kid who went to Hastings and a kid who went to Jones, so I had the full experience. And you're right, it is a different experience, not good or bad. It's just different is different, and you've kind of got to find what's the right spot for your kiddo in elementary school, and the school district has always been, I think, really helpful in terms of when parents find that their kid needs something different, having real honest conversations about how to find that for them. And we found that really helpful, kind of raising our kids here.
Well, and the uniqueness of having choice,
right.
Formal, informal, progressive, and is pretty special, and I think something that this community values, going forward. I'm really glad. I've learned a lot of the history along the way. I know there was a time in UA where they talked about a second high school, and I'm really glad that decision was made to. They all come back together, and I think that's pretty special. And obviously, with the facility that's been provided by the community, it's an amazing place to finish off. And you've just been through that.
Yeah, and I think the kids knowing that they're going to come back together culturally really helps the community, because there isn't. People always talk about a north-south divide. I think that's way overblown. Yeah. Maybe it existed more in the past, but for the kids, they know they're all going to be at the high school on the same sports field, in the same gymnasium, in the same performance space, all on Golden Bear Boulevard at the same time. So I think they appreciate that. What else? What do you feel really proud about after year one? I know it's hard after year one, because you're still just figuring out what's going on and who's who and what's what. Yeah. But what do you feel like you're most proud of coming out of year one?
I think I'm really proud of the work we did, kind of going through strategic planning. That's a lot to take on when you're a seasoned superintendent, and to do that in the first year. I was concerned, quite honestly, when talking to the board about when we would launch into that process. And I'm really proud of the work we did and where we're at with it. And it's a huge accomplishment. And I think we've kind of started to lay the foundation for what's next. And, you talk about something else that not surprises me, but I appreciate very much, is there's not this idea that, okay, we're there and we're done. It's this idea of kids are always changing, society's changing, and their the system needs to change. And there's a lot of excitement around those conversations within staff and within the district, which is, that's a huge fight in other places, right? So that culture exists is pretty special as well.
What are some of the things you learned from the strategic planning?
So you learn a lot about strengths, and you learn a lot about areas that we probably need to do a better job as we go through. One of the things that kept coming up, and this is also pretty consistent in districts, is transition points are hard for kids. So transitioning, meaning we're new to the community and we're trying to ingrain ourselves in the community and the school. And I know you guys work to try to help in that regard as well. And I think we've put some things in place short term, but I think long term, like how welcoming are we? How do we integrate our students? And then those transitions from elementary, middle to high are an area that we're having conversations about. There was a lot of I was really, when I talk about surprises, I was surprised about the amount of conversation there was around. We do a great job preparing students for college and that next level. But what other options are there for kids that maybe they're not ready yet, or that's just not their path?
And there's a trade, or
and I think we're starting to realize societally, like, there's a lot of jobs we need to fill, and there's a lot of opportunities, and the majority of our kids will go to college, and that will continue to be the case. But what other pathways can we provide along the way? And it used to be, it was like that place you went for career preparation, but now they don't have to be mutually exclusive. You can do some of these things and be in a space and a place where you can, pursue either one at the other side. So, we launched this concept of a hub. We're taking the old Mallway building, we're renovating that currently, and we're going to try to do some programming there that provides both college and career readiness, coursework and preparation for students. And that's another thing I'm really, really excited about, getting up and running. And honestly, when I took it to the board, I probably wouldn't have done it in year one. It's a lot. But we had an opportunity to go after a state grant, and we got it. So, we had about $600,000 to bring to the table from the state to make it happen. So, sometimes opportunities come, and you got to take advantage of them. So excited about that.
That's great.
Yeah, and I think it's I hope that it's easier for kids today, because I think one of the kind of one of the side benefits of there being so much in and out of the school, particularly at the high school level, right? With kids going and doing classes at OSU, kids going and doing classes at Columbus State or wherever, it's, when we were coming up, the kids who left high school during the day, you knew they were going to trade school, and I didn't grow up here. I grew up in a much more working class community, but even there it was kind of like, well, what are they doing? Yeah. And I do think anything that can be done that kind of really identifies that as a pathway that is just as valid and not that different than folks who choose to take the college pathway is, I think, great for giving kids options.
Yeah. Well, in terms of, and that's the other thing, in terms of opportunities and what's provided to students, I would put our programming and what we offer up against anyone. I mean, it's almost like too much, like all of these things. And I give our counselors a ton of credit. Like, they have all those kids, and trying to really personalize that service and help kids find the right pathway is a challenge.
It's so great, though, because a lot of people like myself, I wasn't ready for the college experience until the last half of my 20s. And if I had that support during my education, I think I would have done a better job at it, because, some people flow in and out of college and don't get the full experience until their later years. And, that causes so many issues. So I think that's great to have a support system for people who go that way.
Yeah. So those things are very exciting.
I'll use this for a plug for police and fire recruitment, since you guys are brainstorming. It's always out there. It's a good career choice to get started, and then you can always go back to school and specialize. But just something to think about. We're always looking.
That's great.
So you've got a lot on the plate. So schools, we're going to drop this maybe a week and a half before school starts.
Okay.
What's got you?
Like next week? I'm just kidding. The summer seems like it's gone so quick.
So
exactly.
fast.
What are you excited about for the year coming up?
So, we will finish off the strategic plan. So we're the work that we did was mission, vision, values, and really identifying kind of key areas that we want to focus in on. The fall will be, okay, what are we actually going to do? What's the work going to look like? And that's exciting, because that's when you can come and you can start to really articulate it. Here's what we're doing. Here's how you can hold us accountable. And hopefully we'll see all of those conversations that I had. People will see, wow, he did listen, or we did listen, and they are going to focus, or they are going to spend some time. Now you can't fix everything or address everything at once, and we'll time that out. So, really, really excited about that. Just being a year under your belt, you kind of get your sea legs a little bit. You know the players, the things that are coming, and I'm excited to have that stability, if you will. And continue to just develop deeper relationships. This is a relationship build business with staff and with community, and it felt a little bit like I was on the treadmill and somebody put me in a 15 incline and way faster than I could run for probably the first half of last year. And now having that time to really start to think about what the work should be, and then articulating that, I'm really looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, 6 months into my job here, COVID hit, so they took the treadmill, turned it up, and then they flipped it upside down on me.
That's right. I'm excited to actually get the boxes out of my garage, because we've hit the 1 year mark, and my wife says that's kind of the mark where you should be officially moved in as well. So,
make sure you get them out to the curb properly, collapsed and in the right container. We'll help coach you through that, and I'll stop by and help if you need some help.
No, stay away from my house.
So you inherited almost an entirely new physical plant for the schools. Almost. You want to talk a little bit about kind of what's next in terms of physical planning, buildings, and the middle schools?
Yeah. So you mentioned what did I hear along the way?
Yeah.
And I think part of the maybe not an unintended consequence, but the reality of when you build these beautiful buildings in elementary and you have this beautiful high school, when those elementary students hit the middle schools, you start to go, what's going on here? And those questions and those concerns
Just we need to
out.
toughen them up.
Yeah.
It's their toughening years.
If you walk around Hastings, I wonder if there's a basement and something's down there, if noises are happening. But and I give the district and the community a ton of credit. They were really thoughtful about the process and how they got to where they were, so much so that they thought of phase 2. And it's probably hard to believe, but we're 8 or 10 years out from when those conversations began, and we're landing on, that's kind of when we projected having this start to talk about this. So we, in the strategic plan, it's articulated that we will start the process for phase 2. And that doesn't mean we're going to do anything other than start the engagement with our community about what do we want out of the future of those buildings, and when does it make sense to approach the community to address that. So we've actually just released an RFP, the board approved, and we released an RFP for an architect to do some master planning around both middle schools, Burbank, and quite honestly, we're going to look at elementary enrollment. Our enrollment's up about 275 students from year over year from last year. Our projections show that it's going to continue. If you could help us and get students to move into the right elementary schools, that would be great, because we have a few that are getting pretty crowded here, and I do not want to use the R word. The R word is redistricting, which is not something we like to use. So we're going to study that as well as part of this. So you got Burbank, 2 middle schools, and looking at our elementary enrollment moving forward. And that's fun because you get to dream first, and then the reality sets in about costs and what makes sense and tax burden and all of those things. So we'll launch into that in the fall, and that will be a major task that we go through this year. And certainly there'll be a lot of opportunities to engage the community. I know you've done similar work here at the city talking about what the future is going to look like, and both the school and the city have kind of a roadmap of engagement that will continue on, because at the end of the day it has to be, what does the community want here? I've been down the road of a 114-year-old building, and what should we do around that, and understand the importance of history and maintaining it. And there's a lot of complexity. If you just think about Jones, right, there's a lot of complexity there. So that's not an easy, well, this is the obvious. There's not an obvious solution to that. We have to kind of sift through all that together with the community.
And so to make the community members out there feel a little more comfortable, this is not the first conversation that we've had about this.
No.
That was kind of a softball question that I knew kind of where it was going to go, but in part because, I mean, it is going to be, the complexities with these things are really immense, because all 3 of the buildings that you mentioned, we have some kind of a space sharing or co-ownership or lease arrangement or whatever on all 3 of those sites. So because Jones is adjacent to the pool, which the schools used to run the pools, which if you want to take that back, that's fine.
No, we're busy.
That's a great idea.
We've got a lot going on.
I mean, we can run the one in the community center. And
apparently we just turn the water off on you every once in a while to make sure that we know that there's still a relationship.
See, I didn't say anything to anybody publicly about the fact that the outage on, what was that? No, that was July 5th. I think it was the day after. Yeah.
Everybody was sleeping. It was okay.
It was fine. It was cold. It was rainy. And like I said, the guy who could make a map over to your house from the pool was out that day, so it was fine. No, we've got these complex relationships between, up at Burbank, we help manage. You guys own the land on Burbank Park or some part of it, and we help manage it. And then, Hastings and Reed Road Park and the water park, apparently we share plumbing. And we've got a whole host of other issues. So I'm looking forward to going through that process
I
with
think
you guys.
moral of that story right there is you just volunteered to be intimately involved in the facility planning process.
And am happy to do it. We will have folks there, and because since you're taking over the outdoor pools, that's great.
It's a good partnership.
It's a lovely partnership. Yeah. So we've talked about the work stuff. you feel like the families coming in, getting the kids involved in all the activities, all that kind of fun personal side stuff's going well?
Yeah, so on the personal side,
Excited about staff
we
coming back
transitioned
here and
only after 2 years in Chicago, so it was a lot on the family side. So that was the first half of the year
going on in the schools for sure.
was rough.
Have we had the
I
ability
think
to get
my youngest
background
daughter
story
had
and
determined
what
that
brought you
I'm just not
here?
going to talk to
And what the allure
That's
of
my
UA
new
was?
strategy in this transition podcast.
Oh,
She
okay.
has started.
I'm
to
just
come
kidding. I
for
listened
sure.
to that.
Beyond
Soccer, playing
beyond
football,
Steve Shoney,
and,
it was.
so,
although the co-host at
family's
that
doing
time
great.
just
My
wasn't
wife
as
is-
It wasn't.
It was not as engaging.
Yeah.
So
just
we've
amazing
done
support.
our traditional what do you love, what would you change with you before. So I'm going to we're going to do a couple of additional start bench cuts for you to finish today.
I really don't like when you audible, but all right, let's go.
First day of school, winter break, last day of school.
Start bench cut those.
Yeah, if you could never have another first day of school, or it was
Which
always
one
the
do
last
you
day
have
of
to
school.
give up?
I actually, and I'm serious. I love the opening of school. It's
I figured.
it's my favorite.
What is it
for
about?
sure.
Just the excitement of seeing
It's
all
just
the new students?
in staff coming back, and I always talk about with teaching. One of the benefits is you get that kind of reset every year. Like there's this natural pause where you can step back, reflect, think about a year, and then kind of approach anew. And that's that's something. When you look for positives and things that make teaching special, that's one of them. And the same thing happens administratively. We work year round, but things certainly slow in the summer, and then you just have that energy and excitement to come back. And kids getting off the bus on the first day, it's by far the start.
I would imagine it's too. You're very lonely in the summer, and it's not fair that you have to get up early and all the other staff
Yeah.
aren't there, right?
Yeah.
So
Snoozing away.
they
That's
can
all
join
good.
you
That's all
finally.
good.
There's something very magical about the beginning of the school year. I walked outside the other day and I thought to myself, this feels like the beginning of school. It was like the exact weather
Yeah.
that you feel at the beginning of the school year. And I don't know, there's just something very special about the beginning of the school year. So I can see that being.
Well, and the fall is just. I mean that whole time, coming
football
back, community,
games,
the
yeah.
whole. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
so great. So I think we start there, right?
Okay.
I'd probably bench winter break and cut the last day of school, because inevitably craziness is going on at the end of the school year. Everybody's tired, and everybody's tank is a little empty.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of.
So
I mean,
it's chaotic. It's not a
chaotic.
release.
No, it's not. And there's just a lot of stress, and it's not even my stress. Like I literally show up to graduation, and people have worked, our custodial crews, and they worked so hard to make that event
You had
special.
me in tears. I thought
But-
you were brilliant.
Yeah. What I love about UA is I speak for like a minute and a half
Yeah.
and sit down. Like I don't have to give a full speech, but it's just I would cut that time, but there's some special moments there too.
When does attention start to drastically fall from students?
It depends. It's senior year.
Senior year, second day of school.
Yeah, I have forever thought we need to kind of rethink the senior year. Like, there's probably some opportunity in that, especially that second half, where we could do a little more release and see the world kind of, approach. But, that maybe that's to come.
Well, you and I have talked that, as I've seen, certainly Jeffrey at OU, a portion of it's the traditional. You've only got 3 or 4 hours of class a day, and then you're responsible for managing your time. And increasingly, you've usually got 1 or 2 classes in your semester that's online. And so, again, if the idea is that you're preparing kids either for that college environment or for a different kind of work environment, the idea that you're going to hold kids in that senior year for 6 hours a day, and they're going to be in this kind of very regimented thing, it's just not the world they're going to be walking into.
Yeah, and we're walking right into that conversation, this year, that every one of our high school students should experience one online course. We're doing them a disservice if we're sending 94% or 93% of our students to college, and that's the world that they live in. It's a matter of what does that look like and where does that make the most sense, because we certainly also learned in COVID that total online for all is not the option that we want for kids. So there's got to be a balance there, but important work.
Yeah, I like to hear that you're getting kids ready for that, because every kid's different, right? But I had one of those kids that online courses don't work. She tried to take an online course before her freshman year of high school. Total failure. It's just she needs almost a course to teach her how to manage her time and do the work and engage.
And people, hate hearing this because there's so much emotion behind COVID, but there are kids that actually did better academically, right? Now, what the why behind that, and what about the social emotional interactions and all of this? All of that is real, and you have to play through that. It's just, I think the more we get into education, the more AI, the more I think we're going to get better at personalizing these options, and that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
That's very exciting. There's so many different learning styles.
Right.
I went to Miami and I went to University of Cincinnati. Totally different learning styles. I did not do well at Miami, and I did really well at UC because less traditional learning style, and that's what works for me. Yeah. Being able to cater to different learning styles is a huge advantage for students. Do you feel like students are more intuitive with technology and online learning now than 10, 20 years ago?
Oh, for sure.
Yes, that's what I see. It's going this direction, so it's only an advantage.
And it's, we have had these conversations forever around technology, like, when the web came out, like, oh, let's keep it out. We're not going to let it in. Cell phones, we're not going to let any of that in. And now I think we've gotten to a point where we know that that's the reality of the world. We need to figure out how to operate within it to challenge kids to learn and to grow, but also to use those tools responsibly and when appropriately.
Yeah, it's a skill set.
Yeah.
To be able to use technology.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing today, I chat GPT'd on the way over, and this totally gave me my message.
So, you brought up cell phones.
Yeah.
I think there was state legislation. Is that implemented this year where no cell phones in the schools? How's that going to work?
Yeah, it really, I appreciate legislation that kind of says, hey, you should be aware of this, but make your decisions locally. I'm a big fan of legislation like that. I'm not a big fan of do this.
Thou shalt.
One size fits all. So there's room in what it looks like. And I know districts have just said, all right, this is what we're doing. We're gonna engage in conversation with our staff and our parents around cell phones. I think universally there's an acceptance, like, it's getting a little out of control, and what can we do here, right? And how can we restrict them appropriately while also knowing that there's a kind of safety net there and comfort for students and parents and playing all that out. So that is part of what we're going to do when we come back in the fall, and then we'll make recommendations. There may be policy change, but it'll probably just be more clarity in terms of what the expectations are. But I would foresee some kind of parameters being put around cell phones to try to control the screen time a little bit more. And ironically, I thought when this came out, like, what a fight. A lot of districts that have already done this kind of coming into the year, there's been very little pushback from parents. We'll see.
Yeah. One last kind of thank you. As you know, our teams work together to do some scenario exercises at the high school earlier this year. I want to bring it up so that our residents know we're continually partnering together to look at those safety issues, taking the time to do that. But I know it took a substantial kind of chunk of time from your team and to open up the buildings for 3 different shifts for our 3 different police and fire groups to get in there and have everybody be able to go through kind of a disaster scenario at the high school. So both Jackie and I took the time to go over and participate in that and watch and observe and listen to the debriefs. And I can tell you, not every school district and safety forces have that same level of cooperation. And having the ability to do that, should we be in that situation someday, will, it will help someone that we had the opportunity to do that. So thank you for partnering with us on that and having that be a focus for you and your team as well.
Well, absolutely. And, safety has to be top of the mind all the time. And there's some things you can share out to parents and some things you don't share out that you're doing because you don't want necessarily the bad guys to know how things are going to go. But, one of the things I did hear coming in was the importance of the relationship between city and school in UA. And I just commend you, in the work that your staff does as well. This partnership is pretty special, and it's all about benefiting the kids in the community. And I think hopefully you feel we do a great job in making that all happen. But it was I heard quite a day.
Yeah, It was 3 pretty interesting days.
It's pretty heavy stuff to think about, and we had an unfortunate issue with a call at Hastings earlier this year, and I know we both took time. We always debrief with our staff, and what did we do well? What can we do different? How can we improve? But if anyone wants to know about response time in UA, you could look to that day and see how quickly people will show up for kids if there's any type of concern, and just appreciate you and your staff and everything you do.
Well, and shout out to the community for folks did a pretty good job of doing as they were asked to do. We didn't have a bunch of people showing up at the school until we said, okay, if you really need to come get your kid, come get your kid. The community does a good job of kind of understanding the seriousness of these things, and I think we have to give them the confidence that there are professionals who have planned for this, and if you kind of follow our instructions, everybody will be a whole lot better.
Yeah, everybody can follow them except the superintendent's wife.
Well, it's because it was you trying to call her. She's like, oh,
that's right.
What does he need now?
No, the community can ask the backstory behind that one when we see you.
Yeah. All right. Well, Bob, thanks for coming on again. We do need to make this kind of we need to get on a regular cadence for doing this, because I think it's important to have the 5 people who listen to this understand what's happening at the schools.
Well, and I'll just do my last shout out. I had the good fortune of meeting you. We try to meet every month or so for coffee just to catch up, and we chose to walk through the rec center our last meeting, and just a huge shout out to you, your team, and the people doing the work over there. It is. I went home and I was like glowing with excitement with my own family, like what that's going to do for our communities and our families is going to be just an amazing thing. So kudos to you. I know it's a ton of work, and just look forward to seeing it all come to fruition.
So, and does that mean we're going to include some kind of graphic on the top of the Performing Arts Center as part of that whole facilities planning thing?
Sure, I'll send you a few quotes over for the council to review, and we'll get that done. No problem.
All right. Thanks for coming on, Bob.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
My name is Steve.